Welcome back to Basic Bananas Radio, where we share tried and tested ways to grow your brand and get more customers. Everything from the latest in marketing and branding, right through to growing your team and creating an irresistible culture. Welcome back. In this episode, I share some of the strategies that are in my latest book, which is called Beyond the Break, where I share lessons from competing as a professional surfer and the recurring kind of patterns that I would notice in the lead up to a big event. As a professional surfer, it's like the meaning of life is just doing well in the next event. And so I'd go through these kind of recurring events, the recurring fears, recurring kind of anxiety episodes and things in the lead up to these events. And what I've realized is that in business, day to day, we go through the same challenges. However, they're almost unrecognizable because they're smaller. It's not like a big event that's coming up in a month's time and you have to wait, and I'm ready today, but I have to hold back and wait. Instead, these little things happen, that little fears come up, or your little internal voice blocks you from doing something, and it causes us to procrastinate or delay or work on, unprioritized things. So in this episode, I share some of the strategies that I've learned. Well, one of the ones from the book, and how to use it. So some really practical things to basically that you can apply in business, in life, in a hobby or a sport or anything like that. Enjoy the show, and if you want to check out my book, it's called Beyond the Break. If you just Google Beyond the Break and my first name, Christo, it'll come up in your Google search. Otherwise, in most bookstores and on Amazon and everywhere else. So it's an awesome read, apparently. People are liking it. Check it out. I put a lot of effort into it. And it's really cool surf stories that then where I've taken the lessons and then how I've applied those lessons in business. So, unique kind of approach to a book. I wanted to create something that people loved. So if you do check it out, hopefully you enjoy it. Enjoy the show. So as a professional surfer, when I would compete these events, they're so big that I might have to fly across the world to get to the event in the first place. And it's a one-off event. You go in the water, it can be 25 minutes, and you've got to progress through that 25-minute heat. Usually there's 4 people in it to progress. If you don't do well, you're out of the event. You've potentially flown all the way to France or to Hawaii or somewhere, and you're already knocked out. So there's a lot of pressure, and the lead up to these events, I recognized I'd have these same recurring dreams. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, I was a professional surfer when I first left school for around 9 years. That was my full-time career. As I started some business ventures, in parallel throughout those years, then I sort of progressed into more so Basic Bananas and, and where you know me now. But basically these recurring patterns, and even in hindsight, I can look back and see these big challenges, these recurring patterns that I'd go through. And every day in business, because we work with hundreds of different business owners at any one time through Basic Bananas, it's as much about the people as it is about the marketing strategies to grow a business. So we need to make sure we have you worked out. And it's almost like there's a code that you have to have in place to make sure you're not, because what I mean by that, there's a sequence of things, I even call it in my book, the success code. The success code is a number of different things to have in place for yourself so that you really are in a state of flow and you've got things prioritized. If you don't have the whole code worked out, it might be that you have the greatest ideas, but you're not motivated to make them happen. Or you've got the greatest ideas, but when it comes to a sales conversation, you shy away from it because you're not into sales, or you don't want to feel like a salesperson. Or you get to the point of what you need to do, but you don't like social media, or you find something too techie, so you don't block out the 20 minutes or whatever is required to just work it out and make it happen. So it's kind of a sequence of things, like a combination code that once once you got the combination code right, it's effortless to open, right? And it's sort of the same thing. We've got to get you into this state of flow. Now, excuse me, a common thing that I recognize through competitive surfing is that we've all got an internal voice, this little internal dialogue, the mind chatter. Often your worst enemy, your biggest competitor will always be yourself. So you need to work with yourself, right? You need to get yourself worked out. You need to battle through the challenges that you yourself bring up, bring to your day. So one thing is just the internal chatter. This is just one of the strategies throughout my book in relation to one chapter. There's, I think, about 16. I have to double check, but there's a lot of different strategies I share. And so when you have this internal dialogue that kind of gets in the way and it brings up fears like, oh, you're too old for this now, you're too young, you're not ready, whatever, you're not good at this, you don't like sales, or I hate this, or I'm not techie, all these things, they're like beliefs that we make up about ourselves. And the little internal voice in there is trying to protect us from doing something that could make us uncomfortable, right? So it's trying to protect us from danger, which is great if we're going to potentially get physically hurt. But at the same time, if I think about exercising, the longer I think about it, the less likely I am to do it. Because my internal voice will just start coming up with reasons why, even though I know after exercise I'll feel better and it's good for me. And we're all the same, we're just wired in this way. But it will be uncomfortable, right, to actually get out there and do the exercise. It's the same for me with surfing. I like to surf every single day. I had a surf this morning, so I feel great. I get exercise, it makes me happy, puts me in the best state for work. And the longer I stand and look at the surf, the less likely I am to surf, even though I have a lifetime of evidence that I feel better after a surf. No matter what, I always feel better after having a surf in the morning. But the reality is, if I stand there and look at it, excuse me, my child's bringing home a new cold from daycare every second week at the moment, being winter here in Australia. And but the longer I stand there and surf and look at the surf, I'll come up with reasons why not to go. Like, even if the surf looks amazing and I look at it and I might think, oh wow, the surf is great today, I'm going to get out there. If I keep standing there looking at it, there'll be things that come inside my head like, oh, it's a bit too crowded, or oh, I don't really feel like getting wet, or oh, maybe we'll go and grab a coffee and just wait, delay it, procrastinate on it instead of just going and doing it. So I just often have to just get ready, stop looking, just get ready and go, because I know my internal voice will work me out sooner or later and work out a way not to go. Come up with other important work thing or email I need to check or something like that to waste time and, avoid going and doing the exercise and feeling great. So how do we deal with this internal voice? One strategy is, if you try and ignore it, it'll get louder and it'll get smarter, it'll work you out. So instead of ignoring it, acknowledge it. So just have inside your head, I call my internal voice Bronco. So you can give your own voice a name. You might want to call it Mini-Me or whatever. I say, thanks, but I'm going to do this anyway. Don't say it out loud. You might sound like a crazy person, but you could be crazy. There's crazy good and crazy bad, right? But like, you don't say it out loud, but internally I'll say, thanks, but I'm going to do this anyway. A good thing to consider is, what's the worst that could happen? Because obviously if there's physical danger, then you might not want to do it. But if it's just the fact that you're going to feel good after, or you're going to exercise will feel a bit painful, but I'm going to feel better, what's the worst that could happen? I'm going to do this anyway. So thanks, Bronco, cheers for looking out for me, but I'm going to do this anyway. And it deflates the voice, deflates the internal chatter. And another strategy, another little tip for you is, you can rename it. So you could name internally your internal mind chatter, your internal voice, with a name that inspires you. So it might be someone that you look up to, someone like a mentor or something. I have a name which is kind of like a combo of meanings to me. I'll say Jim. So sometimes if I'm feeling nervous or feeling a bit anxious, or I'm about to go in a surfing competition, even still, nerves and things and a bit of anxiety will come up. Or I'm about to present at a business event and there might be 500 people and I have to do a public speaking, presentation for 45 minutes. And sometimes then I start to get a bit nervous, or I get a little bit, jittery and anxious. I'll say, let's do this, Jim. Now, Jim to me, I'm referring to, for me, it has a bit of, I love to read rock star biographies. I've read hundreds of them, a bit of a thing that I'm into. And for me, it's in relation to Jimi Hendrix. So I'm referring to Jimi Hendrix, who I regard as the greatest guitar player of all time, and also Jim Morrison, who was the lead singer of the rock band The Doors. Obviously they're both crazy, eccentric, over-the-top characters that died young and so on. But just for me, it creates this feeling of like, let's be almost in a way like them, like really present, really creative, live for the moment, not care what else everyone else is doing, but let's me be me. Let's bring out the best creativity and the best presence in me to do my best performance. So you might want to come up with a name. You might even come up with different names for different settings. But there you go. There's some tips for dealing with the internal chatter, the internal voice. Trust you've enjoyed the episode. If you do want to learn more, of course, visit basicbananas.com, or you could grab a copy of my book, Beyond the Break. And any questions, send them through to the team at basicbananas.com. To get more from Basic Bananas and to learn new ways to grow your business with clever marketing, visit basicbananas.com.